Good morning, good day, good evening, good night, and welcome to today's Stats Café on the good, the bad, and the ugly, revelations from reviews of National Statistical Systems. My name is Rike Hansen. I work here in ESCAP's Statistics Division, and it is my pleasure to moderate our discussions in the cafe today. Now, I will say a little bit more about the title of the Stats Café and the deeper meaning of the good, the bad, and the ugly a little bit later. But for now, I will just conclude that it has generated more than 100 registrations for this Stats Café. So far, so good. I will thank who've been preparing and organizing the session. That includes Maria, Paul, Ing, and Jessica. So thank you very much to you. Warm welcome again to everyone, and in particular, of course, to our speakers of today. We are very lucky that we have a high-powered, high-quality lineup of speakers today. We have two very senior and experienced chief statisticians and a very experienced interregional advisor on statistics. So let me introduce each of them properly. First, we have Ms. Aisha Shahuda, who is the chief statistician of the Maldives. Shahuda, can you just put your hand up there so everyone knows you're you? Good, thank you. Shahuda has more than 25 years, that's a quarter of a century, experience with the National Bureau of Statistics in the Maldives. And for the past 7 years, she's also headed the Bureau as the chief statistician. She's earlier, when she started, been focused on national accounts and price statistics. And we have also, across the world, benefited very much from Shahuda's contributions over the past many years as the chair of ESCAP's Statistics Committee, as a very active member of the board of Paris 21, among many other things. So a warm welcome to you, Shahuda. Next speaker is Ms. Indu Bandara, who is the Director General of the Department of Census and Statistics in Sri Lanka. So Indu, could you just raise your hand also? Warm welcome to you. Now, talking about a quarter of a century, well, Indu can beat that. She's been working for 34 years at the Department of Census and Statistics in Sri Lanka, and she has headed the department for the past a little more than 2 years now. Ms. Indu is also very active in academia, and I was very happy to send some congratulations to you late last year, where you obtained your PhD from Colombo University. A very warm welcome to you, Indu. And last but not least, I have also invited a special guest today as a discussant, Mr. Gabriel Games. Gabriel is the interregional advisor on organization and management of national statistical systems at the United Nations Statistics Division in New York. And the way I got to know Gabriel for now several years ago was he was actually the person who introduced me to the reviews of national statistical systems. And I've had the pleasure of working with Gabriel on a few of the reviews. That's only a small fraction of the reviews Gabriel has been involved in. He's been involved in more than 20 reviews of the national statistical systems in countries all over the world. And it includes a number of reviews in our region in the Asia Pacific as well, including the Maldives, which we will hear much more about today. But Gabriel was also involved in assessments of statistical systems in Mongolia, in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. So a warm welcome to you, Gabrielle. I look forward to hearing your reflections a bit later. Now, what we will do during the course of this hour is that we will first hear from Shahuda and Indu some of the specific experiences they have had with the reviews of their respective national statistical systems. And then I will ask Gabrielle to share some reflections on the basis of what we hear from Indu and Shahuda, and also maybe add a few good stories from some other reviews Gabrielle has been involved in. This should give us plenty of time also for a question and answer session after we've heard from Shahuda, Indu, and Gabrielle. We have received some questions from the audience already prior to the session. Thank you to all of you for those. I'll try to make sure we get through all of them. But before I give the first set of questions to Shahuda, I want to just spend 2 minutes or so on a few key pieces of information of what is a National Statistical System review, or NSS review for short, because I do assume that several people in the audience today are not clear about this. So just to get us on a little bit of a shared footing here from the outset. Now, NSS reviews are called different things. They've been around for many, many years. They are called peer reviews of statistical systems. They are called global assessments. They are called NSS reviews, which is the term we've chosen here in Asia Pacific. Now, no matter what we call it, they are all based on some common principles and standards, and the review is conducted against those principles and standards. And since we talk about official statistics, the main point of reference for the reviews are the fundamental principles of official statistics. In addition to that, some reviews also lean against the more detailed code of practices for official statistics, which are in place in some parts of the world, including in Europe and in ASEAN. So if a chief statistician requests for a review to be conducted, and these reviews are only conducted if they are requested by a country, then they do ask for an opportunity to assess and to improve the legal, the institutional, and the organizational environment for the production and dissemination of official statistics in a country. So a review really goes to the foundations and the heart of a statistical system. The reviews involve external experts, and that means that there is an openness required, a transparency required, because a lot of things will come out which you don't normally share with the rest of the world. And this explains the title of today's session, because it is both the good and the bad and the ugly that comes out in these. So it requires honesty, transparency, and certainly it requires confidence of the statistical system and the chief statistician requesting these reviews. Reviews are not beauty contests. We are not trying to rank countries. So reviews are more like what I would call a friendly audit. We are not focusing on this rule was not followed and therefore this is the punishment. Reviews focus on the strength, the weaknesses, and coming up with practical recommendations in consultations with all the actors of the national statistical system. So I leave my introduction at this, and I'm sure that both Shahuda, Indu, and Gabrielle will elaborate, including on some of these key issues that really need to be in place for reviews to be successful. So let me move to the first set of questions. And the first set of questions here is a set of questions I will ask Shahuda first to reflect on, and then Indu. So Shahuda, if you could switch your camera on and let us hear a few reflections from you on around these 3 questions. Why did you decide to request a review of the National Statistical System in the Maldives? What were the most surprising findings? And in your view, what were the more important, the more helpful recommendations? Shahuda, you have 3 minutes or so, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rike. In the case of Maldives, actually, we requested ESCAP for this review because we had the National Statistics Development Strategy of Maldives. We were in the mid-year at the time. It's from 2010 to 2019. So we wanted to have this as sort of a midterm assessment so that we can review the issues and then develop the next NSDS for the Maldives. So the review was mostly for the, also at the time the SDG indicators framework were already endorsed and we needed to focus on the generation of the SDG indicators. So these are the key issues that led us to request for this review. As for the most surprising findings, actually we were thinking that we were engaging the users like when we have this data users workshops, when we do this population censuses, surveys, and some dissemination workshops we invite the users. But it was a bit surprising for us because the reviewers were saying, recommending that you have to have a more formal body to represent the users, so that the way we were engaging the users, it's like sort of we don't have a proper user engagement mechanism. Then the other thing is the need to assess the quality of the administrative data that we have been producing, that is publishing in our statistical publication that are produced by other agencies. So the need for the statistical agency to look at the microdata and then assess the validity and the quality of the data. So those are the 2 things that struck me the most as something that we thought we have to do that we were not doing. Then among the recommendations, some things was like mostly from the legal side actually. Gabriel's expertise on the statistics law was very helpful because we were identifying the existing statistical regulation, what were the weaknesses and how it can be addressed in the draft statistics law. And the need to have this establish a statistical council that represents the data users as a more stable mechanism within the statistical office. Then there's a need for the multi-annual statistical planning. That was something that was also highlighted that is very useful. And the establishment of a national indicator framework. Then the other thing most highly raised was the urgent need for this regular mechanism of statistical training and capacity building that was identified during the review by the stakeholders and also in the recommendations. Then the need for investing in the administrative data systems and the statistical business register and economic service. I think those were the most helpful recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shahuda, and I'm glad that there were a few surprises in there for you as well, and also that what I can hear from you is that most of the recommendations they did make sense to you and colleagues, which is good. We'll hear in the second round. I'll have some questions for you about what you've then done about this long to-do list that came out of the review. But let's move to Indu now and see if there are some similarities in terms of what was driving the exercise in Sri Lanka and what the findings and recommendations were about and what was interesting. Now, Indu, I do know that you were not the person requesting the review in Sri Lanka. It was your predecessor, but nevertheless you were part of the senior management at the time. So I do invite you to share some information about the motivation for the review, the findings, and the recommendations. Please, the floor is yours, Indu, for the next 3 minutes. Indu, we cannot hear you. Indu, you on mute.
Okay. Thank you, Ricky. Good day to all of you. Thank you for inviting me to share my experience about the NSF's review of Sri Lanka, which was done in 2019 with the assistance of UNFPA 21. I thank Ricky, Mike, Pepper. I saw him here, and also Mari for helping us to develop this work for us. And I think I must say something about how I got this idea to progress this activity for our department. I must thank ESCAP for arranging awareness program about NSS and NSDS for heads of statistics officers. I think in 2015, 16 and 17, those periods. So a few of our officials were able to participate in those programs, including me. So I think I got the awareness about this activity, and I realized it is important activity for our department. So I came to Bangkok for a program, and I met Ricky, and I think you can remember we had discussions during the lunch break also. So
I remember.
yeah, so I think we proceed from that on how to do this activity in Sri Lanka. So NSS review was an important exercise for DCS in Sri Lanka. This time I must thank Director Ms. Udaya Maheshwaran and her staff, because for involving all the for getting all the burden of this important task, because this is not an easy task. This exercise was a huge and complex. For Sri Lankan context, it was a huge exercise, and involvement was very high. So I thank for them again. So when we realized the process, it is not very simple thing. We have to organize several subgroup meetings to discuss about what are the things, methodological procedures and other challenges and strengths of each of the sectoral activities. Especially we followed frameworks that is called data quality assurance framework provided by the ESCAP. They provided this guideline, so we discuss internally what are our barriers, what are our weaknesses before the mission came to mission visits our department. So beforehand we had some knowledge about what is this NSS review meanings. But the meetings and all these things are very difficult to arrange because of the other commitments they had, especially the ministries. They had some other programs, so very difficult for us to arrange some slots, meeting slots. So that is, but anyway, we managed to get some time and got the time. At the same time, we were under a different ministry at that time. So after drafting the report, now we are in another ministry. So we have to start from the beginning, I think, to explain them what is this NSS and everything. So we are facing that problem now, because the ministry now we are under the finance ministry. So we have to again explain them what is NSS and how we proceed, everything we have to explain them. So when we consider the what we revealed, as mentioned by Shahuda, we also realized that our administrative data systems are not very good. We have systems, but they are not using appropriate technology, a new technology to provide real-time statistics. So we have to specially focus on this area. Many ministries, they have some level, but we can further improve those things. And the coordination, lack of coordination between policies and indicators. So our country tried to improve the coordination using the SDG indicators, but still it is not very, some ministries are not following what are the policies could be derived using these indicators is lacking. And also at the moment we need to have high quality statisticians. The training is very important because the current needs are very different. We want to use big data, then data scientists, so many things are coming now. So our statisticians, they don't have this capacity.
In the interest of time, because we are running a little bit behind, could you mention for us, in your view, what was the most important recommendation that came out of this review?
Yeah, so the important recommendation is to form a council to oversee the DCS activities, because I think that is very important to monitor the DCS activities, whether they are going on correct path. That is the most important thing we found. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much, Indu, and that was actually one thing the two reviews had in common: the formation of the council, which was a strong recommendation also to the Maldives, and this was part of what Shehuda also just mentioned as this in the context of the more formal and continuous outreach also to users. So thank you very much, Indu, and we'll just move to the next round of questions. So I will begin again with Shehuda, and then I'll come back to you, Indu, afterwards. So Shehuda, over to you again. Now to move a little bit forward in the process here, we've talked now about some of the findings, well, the drivers via review, some of the findings, some of the recommendations. And my second question to you here is, well, how have you used the review, and what's happened since the review? And I know a lot of stuff has happened in Shehuda, but you only have 3 minutes. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you again, Rike, for giving me the opportunity. Actually, we have used the findings of the review extensively, I would say. Most importantly, we have improved the draft statistics law that we have and incorporated the recommendations that were highlighted because it was very detailed and very specific. So we incorporated that, and now the statistics Act is actually submitted to the Parliament, so it's in the being discussed right now, and we started implementing some of the recommendations already. So some, like Indu have mentioned, the data quality assurance framework. We actually in the Maldives, we do not have a national data quality assurance framework right now. So we are working on developing a national data quality assessment framework, and also focusing on the administrative data systems, how we can check the data quality. And we have formed a high-level committee for the at the policy level to provide recommendations. In the meantime, the council is actually included in the draft law. Some of the things that we have actually done is additional reviews actually we have conducted, because in the case of Maldives, the program NSS review was undertaken as part of the regional program on economic statistics of ESCAP. So it was apart from the institutional and legal framework and the system issues, it was more focused on the economic areas. statistics side. So we have conducted some review on the social and environmental aspects, how we can improve it. And right now we have initiated the basic statistics course at the Civil Service Training Institute. For that, we worked with the Sri Lankan Statistics Office. Actually, they helped us develop this training. And also, we are now underway in developing a national indicator framework. We were looking at the strategic action plan and also the national statistics development strategy to be, it will be incorporated in the NSTS that we are developing right now. So that is mostly, it has been actually really enlightening and like learning experience for us in the case of Maldives.
Okay, thank you, Shahuda. Well, you are slowly, not slowly. You're actually pretty quick in getting through the to-do list that came out of this review. I'm really impressed, and it's also good to hear that there is this growing collaboration between different statistical offices in the region. I mean, you just mentioned the support that's being extended also from across from Colombo and from Indus team. So that's great to hear, and good luck in getting it all the way to the finish line there. I think statistical systems are never perfect. I guess it's a task that will never be totally done, but you are really well ahead there. So good to hear, Shahuda. Thank you very much for that. Indu, let me move back to you for a few additional questions. Well, a little bit in a different stage in the process. You mentioned your review was just finished last year, and you also mentioned there's been some government changes. And one of the things that I think all these different system reviews are very susceptible to is actually political changes. I mean, this was also part of the process in the Maldives, so it's not unusual at all. But I think you've been particularly hard hit with government changes during the review process. So questions to you into here are a little bit more open-ended. What will happen next? You know, what are your expectations and hopes of what comes out of this very extensive exercise, as you mentioned yourself, which a review really is? Please, 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Ricky, once again. Now we have the zero draft version prepared NSS report. We are going to launch it. We are planning to launch it in 20th November this month. Then we want to, earlier we planned it to do it very big ceremony, but now due to this COVID virus pandemic, we have to do it in a virtual way. So 20th we are going to launch it virtually, and to open wide discussion after that with our new ministry, and then we can move forward. I already discussed with one officer at the ministry. We want to form a official statistical council. So they said we will discuss further how to move forward. So I think we can, there's a positive support, I think, from the ministry side, but we have to do this launching part first. And I think what my next other expectations and hopes, I think the recommendations are very important to implement. For example, we have our report, there's a statement we have to promote data dissemination and communication. So we have already started this activity using the UNFPA support. So now our dissemination communication, we hired two external experts, and we are discussing how to promote our statistics to the general public. So that is one outcome that we have already started. And the other one is we have already revised the Statistical Act. So we identified which area we should improve, and we have sent the paper to our ministry. And the other one, very important one, is we have prepared a cabinet paper to establish a statistical business registry. So that is under discussion stage now. So many things we managed to create from this NSS draft report. So I think in the future we can use this report, the recommendations further, and move forward to improve our statistics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Indu, and I'm good to hear that so many things are really moving. One thing is to look at some of the very tough recommendations that really require legislative changes or support from the whole of the government. These, of course, it has to wait for the right moment. You are going through the motions step by step. There are other things that can be done immediately. And you mentioned also here that there are some recommendations surrounding a statistical business process, business record. So, and that just says that in the both the case of the Maldives and Sri Lanka, we had a review here that looked at institutional and legal. Can I just ask all participants to please mute? Put yourself on mute because we have some background noise. Thank you. So we had two reviews here that looked broadly at institutional and legal setup, and had an in-depth review of particularly the economic statistics production and dissemination. And I will stop reflecting on what we've just heard now from Indu and from Shahuda, and I will give the floor to our discussant of the day, Gabriel. I am very happy to give you the floor to reflect a bit on what we've heard and what you also know about the reviews that have taken place in Sri Lanka and the Maldives. So Gabriel, you have the floor for 5 minutes before I open up for a broader Q&A session, please.
Thank you very much, Rike. And I'm very happy to be with you. It's now it's Sunday. It's a Monday in New York too. So so we are all in the same day, which is good, right? I mean, it's good to be finally all together in the same day. I wanted to congratulate Indu and Shahuda for having actually taken the initiative to accept and request, because it's there to request an assessment or a review of your national statistical system. It's not easy actually to ask some reviewer to come and to assess and review in all details how your system is functioning, how it's working, and eventually, of course, because this is what we want, how we can improve. Of course, we help you, and Rike, we have conducted a couple together also of these assessments. We help you in the way that we are well aware that it's, and it was mentioned by Rike before, it's not a beauty contest. We are not there, and if it would have been a beauty contest, so coming and praising all the countries, all the national statistical system we would visit, it would not be very useful, right? That's a point. But on the other side also, I wanted to say that it's not a ranking exercise. We don't want to say and to make public, this one has 20 points and the other one 18 points and so on. Not at all. What we are there, it's also not to document who has done something wrong. It's actually to find together how we can improve. I think this is a point that is fundamental at the end of the assessment round. I mean, we have a set of recommendations, and I think Indu and Shahuda gave us these recommendations. Shahuda, that had actually the assessment already a little bit earlier, already started to implement that, and this is of course something that is very important because that's the final goal. So I wanted really to mention this point. I also wanted to say, and you remember, Rike, how much both parties, both sides, the assessors, but also, of course, the National Statistical Systems and the chief statistician and senior managers of the National Office, Statistical Office, how much we learned and how many issues we already addressed without even putting them all in the report, right? It's really a dialogue that needs trust, of course. You need this trust, this transparency when you are in the process, right? Otherwise, it doesn't help. Because if the country wants to hide something, they can hide you something. And if you want to have the ugly, I have an example, but not for now, of the ugly thing in a specific situation, but the country is not here. In a specific situation where basically something was hidden, right? And you feel, of course, as on the side of the assessors, a little bit disappointed, right? I mean, when you feel that you give your trust, you work hard for something, and all the information is not provided. In general, these assessment, and I believe it's a little bit the same still, right, Rika? You can confirm it starts by a light self-assessment questionnaire because it helps the assessor to already identify where some problems or issues could be, right? And then depending on the size of the country and the size of the assessment or the review, one or two um, missions. Now, what I wanted to say is that, of course, one size does not fit all. This is the power of this global assessment. Actually, we tailor them so in a way that each country gets its assessment that suit that specific country. This is something that is very important. Nevertheless, there is a methodology that is behind that. And you mentioned, of course, that the UN fundamental principles, and in some cases also the code of practices that exist, but also all the other guidelines, methodologies, and standards that we use, right? For example, we assess economic statistics are used there in a way that is more or less systematic. Now, the interest of doing this like that is that we can also, and this is the power of the global assessment or the review of the national statistical system, is to identify an issue in a country, provide a recommendation and support that country because this is something specific, but also identify these issues that are issues that we can find in many countries. And basically to say we can address them through regional activities, right? And that's why I think that this is something important. Maybe to conclude, I think also the power of the reviews, that they're a little bit structured like the national quality assurance framework. We start with the institutional quality or the institutional dimension. I mean, it was also mentioned by Shahuda, the law, but the law is not everything, right? But the law is an important element, but there are many, many other things than the law in the institutional dimension, but it's an important one. The processes, from the data collection, the way the data collected, what kind of technology we use, how we address the respondents and so on, to the dissemination and the contact we have with the users, but of course, including also the resources we put in the process, human resources, fundamental technology, and at the end, the output. So basically the products that we have, in some cases we focus on economic statistics, in other cases it's social statistics, sometimes it's a little bit broader. But what we want at the end, and it's to help the country, to help the national statistical system to become even better, right? We are never perfect, but perfection is the enemy of the good, as my boss is always saying. But I mean, we are never perfect, but we want to improve. And what we want at the end, it's a resilient, agile national statistical system that is fit for purpose. That's the point. It's all about that.
Okay.
Over to you, Rike.
Good. Thank you very much, Gabriel. I hope we have 30 seconds at the end to hear your ugly example. You got me curious there. Well, thank you very much for all these reflections, Gabriel, and what you've just commented. I mean, it resonates very well with what would normally be the message when a review is actually launched and a chief statistician has the opportunity to get the rest of the government on board, because many of these recommendations cannot be implemented only by the National Statistical Office, which we heard very clearly from Indu just before. And indeed, these messages are important so that reviews are understood for what they are, nothing more, nothing less. And just if there are any people in the audience who would like to have more specific information about how these review processes really are conducted. You know, what does the review tool look like? What is a typical process? How many missions? What does the statistical office need to do before? Who's doing what? Then you're welcome to contact ESCAP Statistics Division. We have loads of materials we are very, very happy to share. I'd also just say that the reports of the reviews in Sri Lanka and in the Maldives have both been shared in the meeting chat already. You're all welcome to have a look. Let me now turn to two other connoisseurs of statistical system reviews who I see have also tuned in to the session today. And we've now heard from Gabriel, who was with me and others in the Maldives during the review. And we have two people in the audience who I also had the pleasure to work together with in the context of the review in Sri Lanka. And that is Millicent Gay Tejada, who was with Paris 21 until recently and is now with the World Bank. And it's Mike Pepper, who is an independent international statistics consultant, former senior manager at the ONS in the UK, who was the lead consultant for the review in Sri Lanka. And I'll just turn to Gay first. Gay, you have actually sent us a few questions. And for me, these are questions I would like to direct to Indu and Shahuda. And are you there, Gay? Do you want to ask your questions now, or should I just read them aloud? Gay, are you with us? All right. Well, let me read out the questions from Gay, and they are very relevant here to the situation we are all in, namely the COVID-19 pandemic. And this question to Shahuda or Indu, you tell me who wants to say something about this. But Gay is saying, well, since NSTS's national strategies for the development of statistics are in preparation both in the Maldives and Sri Lanka, what are the new areas of statistics capacity development that you will include in your new NSTS specifically to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic? And there's a second related question. What kind of support from government, development partners, and other stakeholders would the statistical system need to better adapt to the data requirements stemming from COVID-19? And I will put you, Shahuda, on the spot first, because you actually did get into some of the new training requirements in the statistical system going forward, including in the NSTS that's in the works. So a few reflections to you here on these, well, open-ended and not very easy questions. Please, Shahuda, let's hear what you say.
Thank you very much for the question. And Gay is someone who has been instrumental in the work of the NSDS formulation in the Maldives when she was with Paris 21. So in the case of Maldives, mostly what we found is with the COVID, there's a huge demand for data, especially the data at the local level. So we find that we really need to improve our administrative data systems in different agencies, including the Health Ministry, the Social Protection Agency, all these, so that we will be able to come up with timely information and data that can be actionable. To cater to the needs of the COVID affected population, and also see the situation more clearly in a timely manner. So local level statistics and investing in the administrative data systems is, I think, the key that we need to focus right now. As for the NSDS key areas, something that in the case of Maldives we are focusing is to try and mainstream gender aspects in the integrate it in the whole of NSDS. So that is we are giving a special focus on getting this gender aspect. So that is something that we have been focusing with Paris 21, who is supporting to do an assessment of these data gaps. So I think these are some of the things that we need to focus on to cater for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Shahuda. Indu, do you have reflections on these questions from Gay? All right. Indu, you are on mute.
Thank you, Ricky. I have some comments on this question also. As mentioned by Shahuda, we also have the same issue, like providing local level statistics. Fortunately, we managed to give estimates for the 2019 population estimate. So we managed some criteria and we got these numbers, and that was very useful for the food distribution, especially lockdown area. They wanted to have how many people living in those areas. So we were managed to get those requirements. But we are facing data collection issues now, because people are not willing open their doors to give information to our enumerators. So we are facing challenges. So now we transferred our data collection system to CATI, telephone conversation, because that is the only way we can, if they don't allow, then how can we get those information? We use that method. And also data collection from establishment service, like industry service. People are not coming to their establishments, 50% or some reduction staff reporting level. So we have developed web-based system to get the information, but still the large companies, they are not responding. So we are facing a lot of issues, a lot of problems in data collection stage now. So I don't, if you have some thoughts, how can we solve these things? So we are ready to listen to you. So those are the things I want to mention. We have to rethink during this COVID-19 period, how can we move forward this question. And releasing GDP estimates also another issue, because due to we can't collect the data timely, then producing statistics also problematic. So we have to find alternative methods, like I don't know if you have some ideas, I'd like to share. Thank you.
Thank you. And this, I will pass on the encouragement from Indu to the whole audience. Any good suggestions and advice are always welcome on this. The world is changing, respondents are changing, and that means that statistical offices and the approaches to gathering and processing data needs to change as well. And we do have a few questions coming in on this issue of agility, and I'm going to package them a little bit and direct them at you, Gabriel. We do have a question in the meeting chat here saying, well, is the revision of national statistical systems really necessary? Do you think if we have flexible systems that adopts itself to emerging data needs, then we don't need to do these big exercises and red tapes and stuff? And we've received a few similar questions prior to the session. One is from Mr. Ashish Kumar, who is heading ESCAP Statistical Institute in Japan, SIAP. And he's saying, well, given demands from users is increasing very rapidly, what kind of structure of a statistical system would be the more effective in the present context? And finally, a question which I think I was a little quick maybe in answering earlier on. It's a question we've received from Fadila in BPS in Indonesia. He's a senior statistician there. Asking, well, if we could predict, how long will it take to build a stable statistical system? What aspects do we need to prepare to have a firm statistical system? So on the time prediction, for me, never ending, but there's a little more meat to this question as well. But they really all go to ideal structure of statistical systems. And in that context, what's the use of these reviews if they're big and heavy exercises? How does that work together with an agile and responsive statistical system? Over to you, Gabriel.
Yeah, this is thank you, Ulrike. This is a big question, right? We could have not only the coffee but also the tea and whatever. I mean, and more together. Now, thank you. It of course very good question. One advantage of having a review is of course that you get a team of experts in the country. The review is all inclusive, meaning that you speak with the government, you speak with the central bank, you speak with other users, communities in the countries, you speak with the data holders, I mean administration, etc. So it's a beautiful exercise also of awareness and a beautiful occasion for advocacy. I mean, this is very clear because during the global assessment, we can promote official statistics in the country. And we know that in many countries, there is not enough resources in terms of money, but also human resources. Often in countries, a chief statistician does not have the level that is required for a proper coordination of the system. And it's good to be there as international expert and support the chief statistician in that, right? So this is something that is very important. And that's why I think that if you can have a global assessment or a review, as you call it, of the national statistical system, please do it because we are there to help you. Now, another advantage of these reviews is that we have a lot of other tools to actually try to capture data gap. But we remain sometimes a little bit in a stovepipe approach or position because we come from a specific data and we want to address the issue for the that is about the production or the compilation of that indicator, right? And we don't think sometimes when you do it like that, we don't think about what kind of problems are systemic problems. What kind of problems are problems that I have actually for different statistics that I'm producing? And if I address them once at a higher level, let's say, horizontal one, I would solve all the problems. And that's why this, I would say this angle of the assessment coming from the institutional part, the assessment of the processes in general, it helps, of course, a lot. Now, ideal system. Is there an ideal system? I have not seen an ideal system of official statistics. There are many good systems. A system of statistics, of course, reflects the culture, the history, the structure of the government, and the administration of a given country. Some countries have very centralized statistical system with a national statistical office that is extremely powerful, compiling sometimes more than 90% of the total statistics. And then you have other countries that are strongly decentralized. I mean, I don't think it's our role, I don't think so, to tell the people this, you should not be decentralized, you should be more centralized, you should review totally the way you are structured. What we can have a look at is that if you are a decentralized statistical system and you want to keep it, coordination is even more important. Do you have the right tool to coordinate your system? If you are in a centralized statistical system, of course, maybe the issue is more, do you consult properly your users? Because a centralized statistical system with all statistics produced in a national statistical office sometimes is a little bit more further away from some of the users, for example, that are sitting in ministries. So do you have the mechanisms to consult your users so that you are sure that you are producing the statistics that are relevant? Because if a statistics is not relevant, why do we produce it? So this is a little bit, I don't know if I answer the questions, but this is a little bit the direction I would like to take if we had a little bit more time to go and to drill further these different issues. Yes, thank you, Rike. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Gabriel, and also thanks for the excellent questions that have been coming in here. And as Gabriel mentions, well, there's enough for a couple of weeks of seminar here. But I think what I want to just summarize the gist of what you just mentioned, Gabriel, is, well, statistical system reviews are looking at the fundamentals. And if you want to be able to respond quickly and be agile and responsive, you need your fundamentals to be in order. That's basically for me the gist of this, and this is why I think that statistical reviews are probably even more needed in a world that's changing more rapidly than what we may have been used to before. Now I'll just mention one other question here that we received. And that is from Mr. Ipia Gadabu, director at the Nauru Bureau of Statistics, and he's asking about the NSTS. Actually, he's saying, well, how many member countries have strategic plans, have NSTS in place, and not just, I mean, for the whole statistical system, not only for the National Statistical Office. And now, instead of us arguing how many or how few, my colleague Maria has kindly looked into the records here, and she's going to share a reference in the chat box. And I can say, well, for the Asia Pacific region at the moment, the number of NSTSs that covers the whole statistical system, which are under implementation at the moment, is 20. So we had a question here with an answer, actually, which is always a good thing. And I want very finally, because we are running out of time here, I do want to give the chance for Mike Pepper, who was the lead reviewer in Sri Lanka, to add any reflections. Well, Mike, you did send in a question before the session, and that was, well, to what extent are recommendations now being implemented in Sri Lanka from the review? I believe Indu has nicely outlined the response to that, but you might want to have any other reflections to share here just at the end of this cafe. Mike, you have the floor for a minute or so. This is your opportunity at very early morning in the UK. Are you there? Yeah, can you speak up a little bit? We can barely hear you. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike. We can't hear you. Sorry. I think I need to get straight to closing this Stats Cafe. We are really trying very hard to make them 1-hour sessions that hopefully have given you all much more interest and motivation for either requesting a review of your own national statistical system or ask more questions, get more information about what are these things, what can we use them for, is there anything in it for me? I see there's just one question more here we didn't address. It's about language and whether documents are being translated. Well, indeed, depending on the country, a big part of the resources and time that is required as part of the preparatory work is the translation of some of the key documents, planning and legal documents in statistical systems. And depending on the situation, we may be able to extend support to that from the United Nations or other partners in the review process. All right, well, I want to thank our excellent speakers, Indu, Shahuda, and Gabriel. Thank all the other people who've been involved in these reviews, who've also tuned in today to the session. We see Mike's picture there, and I see Gay in the list of people as well, but unfortunately we couldn't get her microphone to work. It's been a pleasure, short but sweet, and I wish you all a very good day, a very good sleep, in particular over there in New York, Gabrielle, it's about time. Indu, Shahuda, thank you so much for making your experiences available to all of us, and for excellent collaboration in the context of the reviews. It's such a pleasure to work with you. All right, so with that, thank you here from ESCAP for joining the Stats Cafe today. I hope you all got something out of it. Thanks for tuning in and for all the excellent.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.